Some cities have walkable, pleasant, prosperous downtowns with no freeways, and well, other cities just don't. Today, we're looking at the 10 freeway heaviest downtowns in the US. Up next. This is City Nerd, weekly content on cities and transportation. And judging by my analytics, people actually like videos about freeways more than they like videos about, say, historic aqueducts. I guess there's no accounting for taste. Anyway, as always, viewer suggested topics are much appreciated. And yeah, this video is yet another viewer suggestion. You know, I do have a long list of my own video ideas I want to do, but apparently you guys just keep having better ideas than me. Here's the comment that inspired today's video, which came in response to my video on freeway light North American cities, where I gave Kansas City, Missouri kind of a huge dishonorable mention. I recently moved to KC. Please talk about downtown freeways. It is nuts and dangerous. John, I agree, it is both nuts and dangerous. And as much as I like to focus on the positive in my videos, sometimes it just feels good to drag the cities that are doing it wrong. So really, today's video is about identifying the 10 US cities that have inflicted the most damage to their downtowns by using huge swaths of what's usually the most valuable land in the city to accommodate the least efficient, most environmentally damaging mode of transportation ever devised. Is that strong enough? I think that's adequate. So here's how I did this. I looked at the central city of every metro area in the US that has a population over 500,000. It's over 100 metro areas, and I think that captures every likely candidate. But if you know of one you think I missed, let me know down in the comments. Also, I wanted to make this a 10 worst in North America list, because I'm all about including our neighbors to the north and the south, but let's be real. There isn't a single city in Canada or Mexico that's anywhere near making this list. Okay, so those are the cities I looked at. Let's talk about how I measured downtown in each city, which is important since this whole thing is gonna be kind of meaningless if I can't make it apples to apples. It's probably impossible to be truly definitive about what constitutes downtown for each city. So to keep things consistent, I did a 1 mile radius, which is generally gonna capture downtown and means I'll be evaluating the exact same amount of area for each city. Now, figuring out where to put the center of that 1 mile radius circle for each city would be pretty subjective, not to mention tedious. So what I did was put my complete faith in whatever the black box algorithm Google uses to place the name of a city in Google Maps. I mean, it seems like a lot of times it's right on top of City Hall, which makes sense, but sometimes it isn't. Anyway, if someone out there has great insight into the logic of where city names are placed in Google Maps, I'd be super grateful to hear about it. And so within each 1 mile radius circle, I measured the area of all the freeway infrastructure. So this isn't just linear miles or lane miles. This is the actual physical footprint of the freeways, the interchanges, the on and off ramps. And for some of these cities, man, it's a lot. So let's just get into it. Number 10 is Hartford, Connecticut. You know, I didn't expect any city in the northeastern US to make this list, but here we are. Hartford's got an interstate that runs right along the river, just as God intended. And the 1 mile radius includes a big chunk of this truly ginormous interchange where I-84 and Highway 2 come together. Anyway, well done, Hartford. Number 9 is Dayton, Ohio. It's got 2 freeways, I-75 and Highway 35, that run through downtown and eat up a lot of real estate. You get a bit of Highway 4 too. And look at these interchanges. I mean, who builds stuff like this in the middle of a city? For number 8, we're headed south, but only like 50 miles south. This is Cincinnati, Ohio. You know, there's a lot I actually like about Cincinnati, but I don't love the freeway setup here. I-71 is like a super wide barrier between downtown and the Ohio River. And then it's kind of bookended by these massive interchanges at I-75 and I-471. This is just really bad, and it's kind of depressing that this is only the 8th worst on the list. For number 7, we're going to Eastern Ohio. This is Youngstown, and you might be asking yourself, why does a city of about 60,000 people need to have its entire downtown encircled by a freeway system? And you could also be forgiven for wondering, what on earth are they thinking in Ohio? I mean, At least I'm wondering that. If someone has insight on ODOT, let me know down in the comments. Spoiler alert, we're not even gonna get to Columbus and Cleveland in this video, and they're both bad too. Columbus is particularly terrible, but they missed the list just because a lot of the damage is outside of the 1 mile blast radius I'm using. Silver lining, one of the freeway overpasses, North High Street over I-670, is like the Ponte Vecchio of the American Midwest. This was supposed to be about Youngstown, wasn't it? I ran out of things to say about Youngstown. We're going deep south for number 6. It's Birmingham, Alabama, another kind of smallish American city that, well, I can't even tell you what the thinking is here. 3 different freeways converging on downtown, 2 interchanges that are way too big for an urban context. And the big offender here is I-65. Look how wide the right-of-way is. Like, they're expecting any minute they're gonna have to add like 3 or 4 more lanes. That, my friends, is nuts, and it's dangerous too. Number 5, we're going to Atlanta, which just kind of makes me sad. For whatever reason, Atlanta's kind of become the poster child for overbuilt suburban interchanges, even though it's not really worse than like DC. But downtown is truly terrible. There are only 2 freeways, I-85 and I-20, but they're both incredibly wide. And the interchange where they meet up downtown is just a monster. I don't even know how you start to repair damage like this, but it's depressing. Number 4, so I've done something a bit different here. If a metro area includes more than one central city, like Tampa, St. Petersburg, or San Francisco, Oakland, I looked at both downtowns. So Fort Worth, Texas is number 4 on this list. Fort Worth uses just an incredible amount of real estate just for I-35 alone. Look at these interchanges with Highway 121, Highway 280, and I-30. And then I-30 chews up all kinds of space too. After all that though, you know what's still standing? Fort Worth, Texas and Pacific Station. I'm amazed that this thing still exists, but it's kind of a gem. 3rd on the list is Tulsa, Oklahoma, which I wish this was the most outrageous thing that ever happened in downtown Tulsa, but it's not. The city's downtown is a freeway bonanza though. It's got an inner ring that fits entirely within a 1 mile radius of downtown. It's got 6 radial freeways. It's just complete overkill. So here's the question I had as I went through and researched this video. Is it worse to have a lot of freeway in a small city where it's obvious that it's way out of proportion and overbuilt? Or is it worse in a big city where the land is just so much more valuable? I mean, I know the answer is essentially both, but let me know what you think down in the comments. Honorable mentions, or really dishonorable mentions, are up next. Hey, if you're enjoying today's video, well, number 1, if looking at these calamities is what passes for entertainment in your life, seek professional help. But once you've done that, give this video a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. It'll make the YouTube algorithm very happy. Before I do the dishonorables, a couple notes. First, one objection you see to these kinds of analyses is that, well, freeways are good. They're super important for regional mobility, freight movement, and just general economic well-being. Cities just can't be successful without them. Counterpoint, if I run the same kind of analysis for New York, which is probably the highest GDP city on the planet, maybe Tokyo, it's really only gonna pick up FDR Drive, or maybe the Battery Tunnel if you wanna count it. So that's a really compact footprint, and it only comes out to about 20 acres. The freeway footprint of downtown Tulsa is like 16 times bigger, and it serves a metro area population that's probably like 1/20th of New York's, and even less proportional economic output. So I don't know. Can someone please just make it make sense? I just have one dishonorable mention, and actually, I guess it's a pair. Numbers 11 and 12 on this list, just missed the top 10, are Minneapolis and St. Paul, respectively. There's a lot I like about the Twin Cities, but yeah, there's just a little too much freeway going on. Okay, number 2 is actually the city that I thought would come out on top, or bottom, I guess. Kansas City came in dead last in my Freeway Light Cities ranking, and the downtown is pretty egregious. I wanted to say it's like Tulsa on steroids, but honestly, it's only marginally worse than Tulsa. Similar kind of inner inner freeway ring, but with 7 radial freeways and a variety of truly heinous interchanges. It is pretty awful, but unfortunately, it's not really that close to being the worst on the list. And that honor goes to Dallas, Texas. Dallas maybe even gets off slightly easy because I'm not entirely sure I buy into where Google located the center of the city. I mean, wouldn't you just put it at the giant eyeball? But regardless, there's more than enough going on here. Look at the footprint on I-35E and the interchange with I-30. And then I didn't even count all the space around the freeway that has just like surface parking and super low density land uses. But I mean, to be fair, what are you going to locate next to a monstrosity like this? Like high-rise housing with ground floor retail? Yeah, that's like thousands of asthma cases waiting to happen. So anyway, I don't know if everything is bigger in Texas because developable land downtown certainly isn't. And that's all I've got. Thanks for joining today. Pay your respects to the algorithm if you haven't already. Drop your topic suggestions down in the comments, and I'll be back with a new video next week. See you then.